Welcome, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm sorry we haven't yet had an opportunity to meet face-to-face, but I'm happy you've joined us for today's virtual session. My name is Reagan Griffin, and I'm the Director of Financial Aid at IUP. First, let me assure you that my staff and I are happy to answer any questions you may have about financial aid, either today, following this brief presentation, or at any point in the future. Our contact information is provided on the very last slide. We recognize that right now there is an awful lot of uncertainty in the world in which we live. And our goal today is to provide you with some useful financial aid facts and tips so that paying for a college education is as straightforward and stress-free as possible. Applications. The free application for federal student aid, otherwise known as the FAFSA form, is the basis on which all federal aid decisions are made. Students file this form each year online at studentaid.gov. Pennsylvania students should also remember to provide additional information on the state grant application so that they can be considered for Pennsylvania state grant funding from FIA. The 2021 FAFSA application was available starting last October. This October, the 21-22 FAFSA form will become available. We always encourage families to file the FAFSA as early as possible just to make sure that you receive maximum consideration for all different types of financial aid. You may recall that this year's FAFSA for 2021 utilized tax information from 2018. You'll find each year that the FAFSA form collects tax data from 2 years previous. When you fill out the FAFSA, IUP will first consider the student for any federal or institutional grant assistance or scholarship assistance. Sometimes, however, there just isn't enough of the gift aid assistance to cover the full cost of the student's education. For this reason, most students do participate in the Federal Direct Student Loan Program. There are 2 types of Federal Direct Student Loans. If the student demonstrates financial need, a freshman can receive up to $3,500 through a subsidized student loan program. Subsidized simply means that interest will not be assessed to that portion of the student loan while the student is enrolled, at least half time. Everyone is eligible for unsubsidized student loan monies. Unsubsidized simply means that the federal government will not delay assessing interest, so it will accrue even though the student is enrolled. The combination of subsidized and unsubsidized loan money cannot exceed $5,500 for the freshman year. Interest rates are determined about this time of year. As a matter of fact, just recently the federal government released the new interest rate for student loans for the upcoming 2021 year. The interest rate will be about 2.75%. Nominal loan fees, called origination fees, will be deducted prior to the loan's disbursement to the student's account. These loan fees are collected by the federal government. Repayment on the student loan is not scheduled to begin until 6 months after the student is no longer enrolled on at least a half-time basis. Sometimes you want to get a sense of how a change in a student's meal plan or number of credits that they may plan on taking, what that impact will be on the final cost of attendance. I strongly urge you to take advantage of IUP's online tuition and fee cost estimator. It's available to students now. It's online. The website, as you can see right there, is through the bursar's office, and it will allow you to get a very good estimate of what, if any, gap may exist after financial aid is subtracted from the estimated cost of attendance. Students who log in to My IUP will actually have their fall financial aid imported directly into the cost calculator for them. If you find that there is a gap and there is a need for additional financial assistance to help cover the year's costs, 2 other options, both of which are loans, are available to our families. The first is the Federal Direct Plus Loan. This is where a parent, either a biological or adoptive parent, can apply online at studentaid.gov to borrow on behalf of the student. Keep in mind that interest rates for the Federal Direct Plus Loan are higher than the student direct student loan. interest rate, typically about 2% higher. Alternative loan products are also available. They can be useful in situations where a parent isn't comfortable taking on the burden of the loan debt for the student. With an alternative loan, the student does need a cosigner, someone who is creditworthy and 18 years of age or older. It can be a parent, but it's not required to be a parent. One note of caution with alternative loan products: keep in mind the federal government does not regulate these loan programs, so the lenders can charge whatever interest rates, there could be fees potentially assessed for these loans, and they can offer whatever type of repayment terms they feel comfortable offering. For this reason, we definitely suggest that you take the time to check out Elm Select. It's a link on our financial aid website, which will allow you to access at a glance those most commonly utilized alternative loan products at IUP. Going back to the Federal Direct Plus loan, again, this is the loan where the parent of a dependent student borrows on their behalf. The timing for these applications, at least at IUP, is delayed until we really recommend the first or second week in July. The reason for the delay is we would prefer that you have access to the student's bill as opposed to even a good estimate of what those final costs may be prior to putting in your application at studentaid.gov. There is an option on the Parent Plus application to either indicate a specific dollar amount that you wish to borrow for the full year, or to simply say, I need the maximum amount. In most cases, we strongly discourage checking the box, give me the maximum amount, only because this may give you unnecessary loan burden. The online application will come back with a response fairly quickly. It's almost instantaneous in most cases of whether or not you've been approved. The difference in the application process as a parent, we as parents will have to go through a credit check. So you're either approved once you submit it, or you may be in fact denied. We'll get into that a little bit more on the next slide. Keep in mind, another important question on that Parent Plus application is about the repayment plan or status. You have an option, if you so choose, to check a box saying you want to take advantage of what's considered to be an in-school deferment. This means that as long as your student is enrolled at least half-time, you're not expected to go into a monthly repayment schedule 2 months or 60 days after the first spring disbursement is made to their account. Personally, I think this gives you a parent much more latitude. It allows us as parents to decide if we have extra money, then no problem, no penalty. You can go ahead and you can make a payment towards the principal of your Parent Plus loan. But it gives you the freedom that you are not on a monthly payment plan where you're required to make those payments every single month. Of course, we always recommend that you do make the payments on the optional interest only. Your loan servicer will communicate to you at least 4 times a year how much interest has accumulated in that most recent quarter on the Parent Plus loan. Side note, they also do this on the student loans. And again, we typically do recommend to the students and families that they make those optional interest payments. It's just a way to ensure that you're not charged interest on top of interest. Keep in mind, nominal loan fees, those origination fees, are also deducted by the federal government before that Plus loan disperses to the student's account. Also keep in mind that if you receive a positive response to your Parent Plus loan application, you're not yet done. You will have to also fill out the online master promissory note. That is the document that actually allows the federal government to disperse federal funds to you. As I mentioned, after the application is submitted, you may end up getting a result that says, I'm sorry, we cannot lend this money to you at this point in time. What do you want us to do? And there's 2 options presented to you. You can select one of the options, which is stop. I don't want to pursue a Parent Plus loan. I'm just going to let this denial stay on record. If you pick that option, that allows us in the financial aid office to award your son or your daughter an additional $4,000 for their freshman year through the Unsubsidized student loan program. Again, this is a loan that will accrue interest while the student's enrolled, but the interest rate is significantly lower than that of the Parent Plus loan. Now, in some cases that may be sufficient, but in others you may think, $4,000 will help, but I was really counting on getting twice that. What do I do now? Well, that's the second option, and that would be to indicate you're going to appeal the denial or use an endorser or cosigner. And specific instructions are made available to you if you pick that option. Other forms are sometimes also generated and sent to the students. I can tell you that across the country, including IUP, the federal government selects 30% of the student applicants, those that fill out the FAFSA form each year, for a process called federal verification. It doesn't mean that anyone did anything wrong and they're not suspicious of the information that you put on the FAFSA. More or less, it's a quality control check to make sure that the information on that FAFSA application is as accurate as it can be. If you are selected for this process, our office will notify you via paper mail initially, and then you will see online in My IUP that there will be outstanding financial aid documents assigned to the student. This is why it's always a good idea for students to, on a regular basis, log into My IUP and look for any outstanding documents that might be preventing the disbursement of funds to their account. 2 items are automatically assigned to every freshman who is awarded a direct student loan. These are one-time only forms. They're not annual. Unlike the FAFSA, you don't have to do them again. But in order for us to be allowed to disperse that $5,500 student loan, the student does have to go online to studentaid.gov and complete both a master promissory note and entrance loan counseling. Of the 2, the entrance loan counseling is probably, I would consider that to be more involved. So plan on allocating at least 15 minutes, possibly 20, to that online application. It's not something you want to do if you're in a time crunch. Change in circumstances. We understand in the best of years that sometimes families' income will change, especially since we know the FAFSA is collecting financial data from 2 years ago. With the onslaught of the coronavirus, financial circumstances have been changing with a lot more alacrity and a lot more common for most families to experience a decrease in income now that it's 2020. In this case, we strongly urge you to contact our office. We have the ability, if you contact us, to give you what's called a special circumstances form. And what that form does is it collects information about what you anticipate your 2020 income to be. If that is markedly less than what was reported on the FAFSA, we have the ability to reevaluate the student for additional federal financial aid. So if you experience loss of employment, if there's a separation, a divorce, or death in the family, or just a loss of untaxed income, perhaps because the student graduated from high school or turned 18, please make sure you contact our office. Electronic access is important. Almost all of the critical information that our office sends out to students is not sent through paper mail, it's sent through email to the student's IUP email address. It is absolutely critical that they check this on a regular basis. And you'll find that it's not only financial aid information that's communicated this way, it's billing information, it is registration for upcoming terms information. In other words, every office at the university will expect to be able to communicate electronically with your student. The student record release authorization, I just like to include this because it really does, I think, simplify things for you, especially after the student's on campus and you're back home. There's a Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act called FERPA, which legally prevents any member of the institution releasing anything detailed, any detailed non-directory data about the student. In other words, do they owe money still on their bill? Did their scholarships all pay accordingly? Any question you might have about grades or anything detailed like that, we are not permitted by law to release unless the student goes into My IUP and completes the student record release authorization. This will provide you with a keyword and a key phrase which you share with us at the point in time when you call. After that, we can release confidential, what would normally be considered confidential information to you. And as promised, here is our contact information. Even though we're not currently working on campus, we are definitely still managing our phones. We are returning calls to folks. We are responding to emails. I Definitely encourage you to reach out again to me or to my staff with any questions or concerns that you may have regarding your students' financial aid. Thank you.